Hello everyone. This is a video overview that attempts to break down the workflow for the very first week of the happiness unit, which centers on an argumentative, debatable research paper on some aspect of happiness. By this point, you've probably already seen the other UJA video, which introduces the unit. So this is more of a breakdown to prevent overwhelm when you click into the weekly folder and when you look at the assignments that need to be done. Okay, so we already know where the assignment sheet is. These are the readings for the unit. Highly recommend, to the extent that you can, if you're choosing one of the grab and go options, or if you have a thesis that lends itself to that, consider using as many sources that are provided in the unit as you can to make your life easier and minimize what you have to find on your own. When you click into the week 3 folder, you're going to see a lot more lesson content than you have in the past, because now we have so many things to do. The whole focus of this first week of work in this unit is the equivalent of 3.5 weeks of work in a regular long semester. So keep that in mind. This isn't me being crazy. This is the fact that we're having to cram in the same amount of learning objectives, the same amount of work, the same amount of output in this small amount of time for this shorter summer session as we would have over 15 weeks. So the work this week is the equivalent of about 3.5 weeks. It's totally doable, because keep in mind that in a long semester that's spread out over 15 weeks, it's meant to be a slower, more manageable pace because students are taking many classes. The idea, I think, in a summer class is that students are taking only 1 or 2 classes, because 2 classes in a summer session is considered the equivalent of full-time in a long semester, and it's considered the equivalent of a full-time commitment to, say, a full-time job. So I hope nobody in here is taking more than 2 summer classes, and that if you are taking 2, that you're not also working. But it's going to be manageable. I don't want anybody to panic. When you click into the folder, though, you're going to see all these lessons, and they are not meant to be done all in one day, all in a row, because if you do that, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. Think of approaching these as look at them when you need to, refer to them as needed. You do need to access and process all of them and not just click into them, but you're going to need to process all of them when you need them. The first ones obviously are the introduction to the unit, which maybe by now you've already done. These, you're definitely going to want to look at the curated resources that I have in here with the TED Talks. I've got about maybe 5 or 6 TED Talks. If any of those speak to you, those could be 2 or 3 sources that you have in your paper that you don't have to go find on your own. I have some really good ones here. And if you ever get stuck, I know a lot of TED Talks, and so I may know one off the top of my head that is relevant to what you're looking for. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask. We've got the video lectures that you see here. Almost all of them, I think all of them do have a UJA equivalent, so make sure you watch the UJA video quizzes for the points first. This gives me some assurance that you've seen them, but then they're here in the lessons for you to refer to as soon as possible. Before we get any further, I want to remind everybody there's 2 big focal points for this week, despite the number of assignments that you're going to see. The 2 main points are for us to create an annotated bibliography and an outline to help us be ready and in position to draft the first draft next week, but in very small chunks, couple pages at a time. Before we can create an annotated bibliography, which is a document that I've kind of modified the purpose for so that it suits our needs in this class, but it's basically where you will present to me your working thesis, your working debatable thesis. You'll present to me your 7 sources, the bibliographic information for that. It's basically a works cited page with your thesis at the top, and after each bibliographic entry in there, there's a paragraph that summarizes what those articles are about or what those TED Talks are about. And then you'll have about 3 or 4 lines also where you're going to explain very specifically what from those sources do you intend to use to develop which point in your paper. Obviously, you won't know or develop all of your points in the process of creating that document, but the idea is that it will certainly get that started, and you'll have a pretty good idea of some of your big main points that you'll need in your outline. So it's a thinking exercise. And it's a way to hold everybody accountable for actually developing a thesis, choosing sources, kind of developing a plan of what you're using from the sources. It requires that you know the sources deeply and well, and that you make some choices up front about what you'll be using in your paper. And then that will be useful in helping you establish the basic points in your outline, and then you'll go in and flesh those out. So the 2 main assignments this week are the annotated bibliography, which is due on Friday, and then the other main assignment is the outline, which will give us a sense of structure and a progression to follow for drafting. So everything else we do feeds into that in some form or fashion. So let me click down to the assignments and show you what we're looking at there. So this is going to be the bottom of all the folders. There we go. So I did put all of the usual playback quizzes kind of in a lump at the top. There are going to be other assignments down below that are also due. So normally I put things in the exact order that they're due. There would be a usual quiz and then the thing that's due right after it. But I decided to put all of these up front because these are the video lessons for the main things in the course. So keep in mind you're going to have to scroll down. Everything else should be in order, but I just wanted this to be kind of all in one spot. And I do recommend that you watch these in an order, not just based on the due date, because you should be working ahead of the curve if you can. I know that's kind of hard to do when you're doing 3.5 weeks worth of work in 1 week, but if you finish one thing, don't wait until 2 days later to start the next thing. So if you finished, it's like boom, on to the next. So in addition to the playback quizzes, which remember are passive points, the videos are also in the lessons. Here's the stuff where you're actually going to have to do something beyond watching. The first one is kind of fun and it's easy, and you can do this even on Monday of the week because it's just a teeny tiny thing. This is a class collaboration document that we're all going to work on, and I've already opened it up here. And one thing you need to know when you click in here is that when you're inside, you're probably going to be prompted, or you will be prompted, to sign into your STC Microsoft account, because that's, this is a shared document through that. When I started making this video to begin with, I got an error in here because I was signed into my personal Microsoft account. So I had to stop, redo the video, and make sure I was signed into the school account. But this is a collaborative document. Normally in a long semester, I would have students do a pre-writing assignment on an individual basis. And if it were a face-to-face class, there would be some activities that we do in class. What we're doing here emulates something that I do in my face-to-face classes, where we list a bunch of questions individually on our own, and then we talk about them in class. So to kind of approximate that, I have a collaborative document here. I've already started it, and the idea is that we're all going to come in and we're going to all add 3 questions that we think might spark some discussion, might possibly lead to somebody helping somebody think about a debatable claim that might serve as a good basis for a research paper. So this is kind of a group effort here. This is going to become a hypothesis assignment that we'll further explore, but before we do that, we got to create the document. So everybody's going to come in and ask 3 questions, skip a line between each one. I made the main question bold so it's easy to see, and I want you to put your name out to the side, pop a color, there, because the hypothesis assignment, as you know, is graded on a scale of 1 to 10. 3 of those 10 points for this one will come from, did you add your 3 questions to this document? If you didn't, you can still participate on the other part, but a 7 would be the highest that you could get. So this is really easy to do. When you're ready to edit the document, you're going to click on Edit Document, and then it will open kind of in the online version of Word. And I guess I'll go ahead and click on that just to show you. Notice how it opens another tab over here, and it kind of takes a moment to load, and then it opens there. And so then you would just uh, click onto the document, add your questions, and then when you're ready, go back into this document. And for you to see them in this document viewer, you have to click on the refresh button, and then they'll show up here, and then you close that out and you're done. And after Monday or Tuesday, I'll download a hard copy of this and I'll upload that into a hypothesis assignment so we can come back and answer those and respond to each other. And again, the purpose of this is to potentially help with developing a thesis statement. So easy and low effort to come up with your 3 questions for that first part. Then we have 2 hypothesis assignments, and the reason for these is because each one of these is tied to one of the prompts on the assignment sheet. And they're also good, even if you don't end up choosing one of the grab and go prompts, they're also good. Chances are you'll probably be able to use at least one of them. So you know the drill on the hypothesis assignments. You can work on these at your own pace, but they do have due dates. These are individual assignments. They're already ready to go. So the great thing about having these things open is that you know you're going to have things open and you're going to be able to work at a steady pace. You're not waiting for me to open anything. All right, so we've got those 2. Then we have a placeholder for the brainstorming document. So I've got that here. I already have a place for it here, but I need the document to be complete before I can unhide that. Then we have the annotated bibliography assignment, and there is an option on here where you can automate part of it. You can't do the annotated bibliography until you have your working thesis, until you have your sources chosen, until you have personally read them or watch them all the way through, process them deeply. Don't do the thing that we've all been guilty of doing where you choose things in haste. You haven't really read it. It just kind of sort of looks good. Don't do that, because don't skimp, don't rush, even though we have a lot on our plate. So there is an option for you to automate the summary portion with AI. So this is the one exception where I let you use AI to summarize, like say an article that you're going to use, or summarize a TED Talk, but only if you know it well and can judge the output. Sometimes you have to tweak it, and sometimes you can do a better job than it can. So you could do a mix and match approach, or you could let it do all the summaries. You could let it do some. But there is one portion on the annotated bibliography, well, actually 2, that has to be 100% human. That's the development of the thesis. And the other is your explanation, which has to be color-coded of how those sources are going to be used in your paper. So again, I've got videos on all these things and written lessons, but I'm focusing on the main assignments here. I'm also usually collect these after the rough draft, but you're also, once you've chosen your sources, you're going to upload them to this sources assignment. Super easy, passive grade. You're literally just downloading your source articles in PDF form, uploading them here. For your TED Talks, you're going to navigate to the transcripts for those, copy paste them into a Word file, save them as a PDF, name them something logical, so that I have all 7 sources that you intend to use in your paper here. This is going to be helpful for me when we start drafting next week, and there are 4 attempts on it, which factors in the possibility or maybe even the need that you might need to add sources, swap something out. So it's not fixed, but it helps me so I can do that. And it's also required by the time we get to the final draft. I have to have all of your sources here, because your paper won't be eligible for grading without that. On that annotated bibliography assignment, there's also a requirement to get AI feedback on it. We're on such a fast pace that I'm going to be bringing up the rear in everything. I'm going to be struggling to, y'all are going to be running out front, and I'm going to be sprinting in the back trying to catch up. So when you get your annotated bibliography done, you're going to upload that into one of the AI platforms. As we get closer to that, I may provide some other suggestions on that, but the purpose of that is to help you see, are you missing anything? Is anything ill chosen? Obviously I'm going to be taking a look at this too, but again, this provides quick feedback. And if you are prompting well, and if you know your sources well, you can get good feedback and see what you're missing and make adjustments early in the process, and not find out after the fact that you need something later on down the road. And since we're so pressed for time, make sure you read in the assignments what all goes in there, because notice it's that plus AI feedback and reflection. So you got to, when you're looking at this one, you have to plan enough time to get it done, but also to include the reflection. You don't have to revise anything, but you're showing me that, like, hey, I got feedback, and you're doing a little reflection to say, I know I need to swap out this source already, because when I see that, then I also know that I don't have to tell you that, hey, you need to swap this out, and so on. And then we have the outline, and there's a reflection on the outline too, but that one I was able to break up. You do the outline, then the next day the reflection is due. So that's it. It's not as bad as it seems, but a lot of legwork goes into being able to create that annotated bibliography. The usual videos that I have on preliminary research, that's kind of informal research that you do on the internet to kind of see what's out there. And I also show you some shortcuts for finding things on the internet that you will be able to find in the STC databases. So it's kind of like finding them on the web and then back searching on the databases. Now, obviously, you can look in the databases the regular way, and I have a video on how to formally find research there. But I have some neat tricks that can save you some time and help you find some things more quickly. So be sure to attend to those things as well. All right, so that's it. I hope this makes it seem less overwhelming than it might if you just clicked in and kind of or looking at it on your own. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, but just know that we kind of have something to do pretty much every day. All right, y'all have a great day. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.